This November, we have a very intriguing battle in the light heavyweight division as Dmitry Bivol and Zurdo Ramirez clash in Abu Dhabi in what could be a lot closer than most people think. Dmitry Bivol is coming off a huge win over pound for pound star Canelo Alvarez, while at the same time showing why he's one of the best in the sport due to his performance. However, this time he will face another Mexican, but with very different fighting attributes. Ramirez has waited a long time for a big fight, and we will finally see if he is the real deal or just another fighter with a padded out record. Nevertheless, I believe we will see a competitive bout in the Emirates, with both men looking to exploit each other's weaknesses in various ways. In today's tactical overview video, I'm going to look at potential tactics both men may use to win this fight. Will Bivol continue to dominate the way he has, or will Ramirez be the dark horse to take over the headlines? No doubt we will all be tuning in to find out. Speaking about watching boxing, have you ever considered using a VPN? Well, the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN, could be the perfect solution to watch boxing worldwide. Now, if you're like me being a huge boxing fan, it can be one of the hardest things trying to watch boxing from different countries. A VPN basically helps you to connect to your internet to a different country's server, while also keeping your data and connection secure. It also protects your online identity by hiding your IP address and permits you to use a public Wi-Fi hotspot safely. The great thing I like about using NordVPN is that I can use US-based servers and watch things like ESPN Plus and other entertainment channels, which I can't get here in the UK, or even get pay-per-views which are restricted in whatever country I'm in. This makes NordVPN the go-to way to watch boxing worldwide without having to find a bad stream or having to pay a ridiculous amount at times, all while knowing my connection is completely secure. If you use the link in the bio, nordvpn.com/boxinglife, you can get access to their exclusive deal and get 4 months free using NordVPN. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it out risk-free and see if it works for you. Now, let's get right back into the video. First off, let's start off with the challenger, Ramirez. Zurdo has built up a record in much obscurity for the most part. However, you can't discredit his achievements to date, one being the first Mexican to win a major super middleweight title in that division, and building up a record of 44-0 is no easy task. But since moving up to the light heavyweight division, he seems to be, in my opinion, a much more comfortable fighter due to him not having to cut the ridiculous weight. In fact, he actually rehydrated to 204 pounds in the day of his last fight, which shows you how big a man he is. It's crazy to think he once fought at super middleweight. But in terms of his style, Zurdo is of course a southpaw and has a very underrated pressure swarmer style. Sure, he has been known to slug it out at times on the inside, but Zurdo does have very good ring IQ, counter punching, that he uses well with his big presence due to his size and reach, making him very difficult to break down for most opponents. Being a southpaw on top of all this makes him incredibly dangerous, as he does have the ability to create angles and make you fight on the inside. Nevertheless, much like Canelo, Ramirez is most dangerous and best when he's sitting down on his shots and has you trapped in the corner or the ropes. This is where Zurdo does his most damage on the inside with his damaging, well-placed body shots. However, against someone like Bivol, he won't be able to keep him there for too long. Canelo had initial success, but I believe Zurdo needs to go to the body in the short space of time before Bivol moves left or right off the ropes, and he needs to either quickly pivot off the front foot when Bivol moves left, or quickly use a lateral L step to stop his escape and continue the pressure. Ramirez also has a tighter guard, and due to the southpaw stance, he instead looks to parry away jabs, giving his opponent a sense that he can close the distance to throw other punches, only for them to get caught coming into range with his favourite lethal right uppercut, while he also does throw the right hook as well. being a southpaw and fighting orthodox fighters all the time, it also comes naturally to him to get on the outside of his opponent's foot and centre line before throwing his left hand and firing other combinations. But in terms of facing someone like Bivol, who likes to use a lot of in and out movement and prefers fighting from a distance, Ramirez, in my opinion, will have to look to time and counter Bivol coming into range. Due to the fact that Zurdo is quite a patient for the most part, he will not overly rush his work. I can see him drawing Bivol in at times, as he will have to close the distance due to that orthodox southpaw matchup. This is something Bivol can actually sometimes fall victim to in the early rounds, as he's trying to work out the best range to fight from and does get caught with punches. Zurdo though simply needs to have his timing on point and connect him with the counter right hand or straight left down the middle as soon as Bivol comes into range. However, the key area overall for Zurdo will be that lead hand and jab. Bivol has one of the best jabs in boxing, landing 9 per round, and he will need to look to neutralise this punch so he can win the fight. Bivol is someone who looks to work off the rhythm of his opponent to exploit it through timing, and in most cases it comes off his lead hand. So power jabs, double jabs, or going to the body are actually punches that offset Bivol at times and force him to reset again. Therefore, the key for Ramirez is not to become too predictable with the lead hand, otherwise Bivol will work it out and know what he's trying to do. Canelo in the last fight didn't throw the jab nearly enough, and that's why Bivol was really able to dominate the fight, as there was no threat of this particular punch. However, I expect this to be very different this time around with Zurdo. The foot positioning and the stance also quite often clash in a southpaw orthodox matchup, and you will often see the southpaw and orthodox fighters pawing out their jab trying to win dominance. The big thing however is that Zurdo is patient and waits to counter orthodox fighters' jab by stepping on the outside and then attacking the body with a left hand followed by a right hook. By neutralising Bivol's jab, it could frustrate him to potentially rush his work to find openings from a different angle or on the inside, and this is where Zurdo has the best chance to land on Bivol and inflicting damage. Now let's take a look at the champion Dmitry Bivol. Going into this fight, Bivol last faced a southpaw in a competitive clash in 2017 twice. 5 years on though, he will arguably be facing a much tougher and bigger southpaw in Ramirez compared to those days as a contender. However, with his vast amount of amateur experience, Zurdo won't be something he hasn't faced before at some point. If you've watched my tactical overview videos in the past, you will know I don't like going too far back in time. But in the case of the orthodox southpaw being a distinctive matchup, I will look at how Bivol has handled southpaws in the past. Dmitry is no stranger to facing much bigger men in the division, and I think once again he will take a very cautious approach and look to frustrate and break down Ramirez over the 12 rounds. In his fight against Clarkson, a southpaw who is obviously not at the same elite level, Bivol used very simple combinations when attacking him. It did help him that Clarkson kept a high guard defense and would go on the back foot, inviting Dmitry Bivol to attack with very basic combinations and beautiful in and out movement, making him very hard to time. He would come in with single jabs before firing back with a 1-2 or even a 1-2-3 combo, always making sure to get his lead foot on the outside of his opponent when throwing these attacks, especially if he used the right cross. Zurdo is not the fastest fighter out there, and personally I think we need to see the intensity and quickness of his punches and footwork in this fight. In the early rounds is where I think we need to see Bivol use the sharp, quick 1-2-3 combinations to the guard and the body before moving in circles out of distance to retake centre ring and continuing his attacks. He has proven he can fight like this over many rounds, leaving his opponents frustrated and with no chance of winning on points. However, against a man the size of Zurdo, he can't get complacent, and he has to be prepared at all times for Zurdo's lethal right hand on the inside or at mid-range, as Bivol at times has been able to coast fights and drop his guard when he feels comfortable. However, if Bivol's power is not enough to keep back Zurdo for the 12 rounds, Bivol's lead hand dominance and constant movement are going to be the key in how he wins this fight. Final thoughts and prediction. Having watched a lot of Ramirez in the lead up to this fight, I actually think he does have all the attributes to become a top light heavyweight champion. He's a southpaw, he has a big frame, reach, an underrated ring IQ and the ability to time opponents with that right uppercut. However, the question marks are over if he can do this against the elite of the division. Sure, being the bigger man can help, and more stationary opponents make him look a lot more dangerous than he actually is. But we have seen how that sometimes turns out in more recent fights, when someone has superior ring IQ and movement. For Dmitry Bivol, his ring IQ, movement and jab are probably up there with the best pound for pound, and he has proven consistently that he can outwork, outmove, jab much bigger men for 12 rounds comfortably. The question marks will be over how he will handle the southpaw, but when you consider his huge amount of amateur experience, he's no doubt faced many southpaws over the years. Nevertheless, southpaws are always a tricky customer for anyone, and I believe Bivol will need to use the early rounds to see how he can break past the southpaw stance. And as long as he doesn't get too careless with Ramirez timing him coming into range, I do once again expect Bivol to win over the 12 rounds. I'd love to hear your prediction and thoughts in the comments. Do you think the southpaw stance and size of Ramirez will be too much for Bivol? Or will Bivol once again be able to box the 12 rounds comfortably? I'd love to hear your thoughts. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.